bank side, I will support when you call on me. But if everything is okay, then it means everything will be implemented smoothly. So my presentation is just the outline of the presentation, basically giving you the bank's procurement framework, and of course the basic principles that are followed, the roles and responsibilities of the partners in the implementation, that is you and the bank. What the bank does in terms of review of procurement actions, procurement planning, which is very critical. And this is where we should be, discussing the procurement plan that has already been prepared, something that you need to be presenting to this team based on the different activities implemented. We shall also look at the procurement arrangements for the project and selection of consultants and the links to the procurement resources that are critical for all of us here. So when we talk about the procurement framework, we are basically looking at the procurement policy for bank group operations, the operational procurement manual, the procurement toolkit. These are the critical documents that form the bank's procurement framework, which was approved in October 2015. Now, under the toolkit is what you have as the standard bidding documents for goods, works, and consulting services. Then there are also user guides for preparation of the bidding documents, and there are what we call guidance notes. If you've gone through the procurement, the bank's website, external website under procurement, you'll be able to see this clearly outlined. And these are very useful resources for not only the procurement team, but for all the parties that are involved in implementation of any bank financed project. So the guidance notes basically give you, and of course in terms of scope, it covers acquisition of goods, works, and consulting services, including non-consulting services that are financed by the bank. So even where the bank is contributing, say, 1 unit of account, and you're contributing 99, still the bank procurement framework will be used for purposes of procurement. We shall go into details. And also, the framework clarifies on the applicability of trust funds. As you have already seen, that you have a TSF, which is about, I think, 2 million UA. And I wasn't involved in the preparation of that grant, but if you look at the financing agreement, it's clearly indicated that the bank procurement framework will be used for implementation. Now, I did indicate that there is some operational bank procurement operational manual, which is what I would call a reference document that all of you should familiarize yourselves with. It defines in details the bank's procurement policies and procedures, and it also ensures compliance by all, that is the bank staff, and you, the recipients of these grants for implementation of the activities. It's important because you, the implementers, are involved in the initiation of the procurement process. You are involved in, of course, you come up with your work plan, which fits into the procurement plan, and you need, of course, to define your requirements, and you'll be involved in the evaluation and contract management at different levels during the implementation. So this operation manual gives you the details on your roles and responsibility at the different stages of the procurement process. And of course, as I said, it gives common understanding to all users, both the bank and also you, and to a large extent also suppliers that are interested in expressing or participating in the various procurement opportunities that this project presents. I say this because suppliers who are interested in bank's operation sometimes even understanding the procurement procedures more than the user, the implementers. That's why sometimes you find they are complaining and they challenge you in terms of the information that you have provided to them. This information is available. It's on the bank website, so they can read. Now, the procurement, of course, has the framework, the overall framework. It provides, permits use of 3 procurement systems. The borrower procurement system, the bank's procurement methods and procedures, and third-party procurement system. So generally, when we talk about the bank's procurement framework, it defines all these 3 systems. So at where applicable, it might be indicated, and this will be clearly indicated in the financing agreement that, and also based on the assessment that has been undertaken during the appraisal, that for certain procurement activities, the borrower procurement system will be used, or the bank's procurement methods and procedures will be used, and where applicable, third-party procurement methods, and systems will be used. And usually third parties will be, say, for example, UN agencies that have signed what we call a principal fiduciary agreement with the bank for implementation of certain components of a project in defined areas. So usually where we're implementing certain, we are implementing projects and components in, say, in states in transition or fragile situations. We may use, say, a UN agency to undertake those activities for which they have a comparative advantage. So in which case, then it will have been defined in the financing agreement, and of course agreed with the borrowers and probably the host country that we shall be using the UN agency, because that's the third party to implement certain activities using their fiduciary systems in terms of procurement, in terms of financial management, monitoring, and evaluation. So the operational manual defines all these systems in details. Now, in terms of roles and responsibility, it also gives guidance and advice on users on how to manage their respective roles in project implementation, and also how to resource or put together a team that will be handling procurement of goods, works, and the services, and explains in details how to manage specific aspects of the procurement process. For example, if we talk of preparation of terms of reference, what is it that you should do and who should do it? All this is clearly explained. In terms of evaluation, in terms of shortlisting of consultants, in terms of selection of an individual consultant, or selection of a firm as a consultant, or selection of an institution to implement procurement activity. All these are clearly detailed in the bank procurement operational manual. I think there's one of the microphones or somebody online has this online. So the manual also provides information, of course, like I said, on what users should know, what they should do, and what they should not do. What they should not do is covered under what we call conflict of interest. So while conducting your mandate in terms of implementation and also observing the bank rules and procedures, there are four core principles that must be observed. And these four are what we call the 4 E's: economy, efficiency, effectiveness, and equity. Now, in terms of the economy, we are looking at the spend. The emphasis here is really the need to manage the public funds that has been entrusted to you to undertake implementation of the project, to ensure that there is due diligence so that prices paid for goods, works, and services are acceptable and represent good value for money, all the money that you spend. In terms of efficiency, we are looking at how the process is handled, timeliness in the procurement process, so that we are able to deliver the required outputs. Of course, this goes for a review of processes at your level and also at the bank level to ensure that we reduce on the lead time for implementation of the procurement in order to be able to deliver the outputs that we are talking about. Of course, there was a complaint during the appraisal that the bank takes too long to provide a no objection. And I also say the bank also takes time and provides objections depending on what you submit. So before the final no objection is given, definitely there's a review process for your submission to ensure that you are meeting the required rules and procedures that are expected. But at the same time also, we also observe that there are also delays from the implementers, where, I'll talk about it later, initiation of the procurement process takes forever. And then as soon as it is initiated, then the bank is now pushed forward to, can you do this? We have submitted our request, can you make sure you handle it quickly? Yes, we shall. But also, the delay has also been on your side. So it means we are all not efficient probably at all our levels. So it is something that we need to be looking at. If I may ask, what is the implementation period for this project, TAAT 2? How many years? 3 years. Very short time. So it means 6 months are already gone since the approval, and we may have not yet started anything. So now we look at minus 6 months. That's the period that we have for implementation. So it means we must have our gains to ensure that we handle all the activities and be able to implement within the remaining time frame. Now, in terms of effectiveness, we are also looking at the impact of the procurement process in meeting the project development objective. Because this project has a project development objective that must be met. And to meet those objectives, there are activities that are going to be implemented. And to implement those activities, there are procurement actions that must take place to be able to deliver either the goods required, the technologies that are needed, or the services and trainings, so that the development objective is met. So, in all our processes, how effective are we in terms of delivery to meet the objective? How efficient are we? How effective, and what are the resources that we are putting in? Then we look at the issue of equity, that is giving opportunity to potentially qualified contractors, consultants to be able to participate in the procurement process that is financed under this implemented under this operation. So the form is you may not necessarily achieve 100%, but there has to be a balance. Now, in terms of roles and responsibilities, I mentioned this earlier, but these are clearly defined. And there are basically 3 parties involved, parties to this. You have the bank, you the recipients of the grants, or the borrowers, and then you have the market. So all the 3 parties have roles and responsibilities that must be, undertaken. And there are, of course, binding constraints in terms of time, in terms of meeting these roles and responsibilities. The bank on the other side, of course, finances and supervises the process. I think we have done our part. We signed the financing agreement. So we are now going to supervise the implementation. You, the recipients, you are responsible for the project implementation. And again, like I said, the implementation is about really procurement, getting in the good services which are required for implementation of the various activities. And to do that, of course, you will work with the contractors, with suppliers, with consultants out there in the market. And of course, contracts have to be signed. So between the bank and you, the recipients, we have the financing agreement that defines the relationship between you and us. On the other side, you will sign contracts with the market to be able to deliver goods and services. So the contractors will have to deliver on their part. Your work is to make sure that they deliver and you pay them. Ours is to supervise the process. Are you following the procedures? That's why in the procurement plan, we have maybe prior review, cost review, or procurement audit. That is the oversight that we shall be undertaking during implementation. So, when we sign these agreements, they bind the relationship. There is a give and take. What is it that we are supposed to give you, and what is it you are supposed to give us? Likewise, when you go to the market, you need their services. So it is you to tell them that this is what I want. How do you want it? You define that yourselves. So, as the bank conducts its action in procurement, action in terms of oversight. We do reviews of the submissions. And of course, this will have also been, if you look at their financing agreements, they clearly define what we'll be doing in terms of reviews. So there is what we call the prior review, particularly if you are using the bank procurement methods and procedures. And there's also post review where you are using the bank, you're still using the bank's procedures, but certain thresholds you will have to conduct the procurement process without necessarily reverting to the bank. The bank will come at some point to review the process, and we may also require that you use the bank's procurement documents, the bidding documents for implementation of those procurement actions. And then you have the procurement audit. That is now when we have clearly indicated that the borrower or the recipient procurement system will be used in its entirety. In other words, you are doing the procurement. If there are any complaints, you use your systems for handling the complaint or reviewing the complaints. And then at some point, we may ask that the procurement auditor is engaged to come and review the procurement process. I think that is also very clear in your financing agreements. The procurement officer, do you have the financing agreements with you? In the system? What about the compact managers? Do you have the project documents with you? Yes, you have shared, but do we have them? Yes, we do. You do? Okay, that's important. So it's important that you look at them and see what regimes procurement regime has been indicated in the financing. And of course, the issues of misprocurement. The bank will, of course, not finance those goods that have been procured, that have not been procured in accordance with the procedures that have been agreed in the financing agreement. And of course, the bank policy is that a portion of the financing will be cancelled if the misprocurement has been detected. And of course, that happens, especially when we are doing post-review and the procurement audit, is when we can discover that the procedures are not being followed. But where the prior review is, of course, it means we are following all through. So you need to take note of this, because if you look at their financing agreement, the burden of procurement falls on you. And of course, as you conduct this procurement, there are issues about eligibility, that is the source of goods and the services, the source of the suppliers, the contractors, the consultants, and this eligibility requirement is clearly defined in Article 17, 1D of the agreement establishing the African Development Bank. So, unless, of course, is what we call the rule of suspension of the rule of origin, that will have probably been agreed and also indicated in the financing agreement. So this therefore means that for all the goods and services and also the consultants, that suppliers that you'll be dealing with should be eligible to be able to supply goods and services. Now, these two projects are being financed under the ADF window. And under the ADF window, the eligibility requirement is universal. In other words, you can, suppliers and contractors and consultants from any part of the world can provide the required services for as long as they meet all the eligibility, all they meet the requirement for implementation. But of course, in terms of the universal eligibility, there are also exceptions. There are also exceptions where blacklisted or debarred farms and individuals from the borrowers' countries will not be able to participate. And of course, the responsibility is again on the procurement team to do the first line of review to ensure that the farms that they are about to award contract during the evaluation process are not debarred. And where there are country-specific regulations in terms of debarments, of course, the bank has to be satisfied that the exclusion of those bidders or consultants does not affect competition. So usually, if it is debarment by the country, you need to know under what circumstances. Because the debarment will always be by the procuring authorities or the public procurement entities, but public procurement authorities in those respective countries. Now, where the farms have also been sanctioned by the bank, we have what we call a cross-debarment agreement. Of course, those farms will not be eligible to participate in the procurement process. And of course, where UN sanctions apply, it means those individuals and farms and also goods from those countries will not be, eligible. And for state-owned enterprises that are not operating commercially or that benefit a lot from subventions from the government are of course not allowed to participate. The exception here could be for universities and research institutions that provide probably exceptional services for project implementation, and there are no private sector players in terms of provision of, say, consultancy or goods or some expert advice. Then there could be an exception for their participation. But of course, this justification has to be given for their use. If you look at paragraph 5.3 of the project appraisal report, it clearly indicates that given the nature of implementation of TAAT 2, there may be situations where, say, research institutions are the only ones probably that can provide a specific service. So in which case, then they will be used. So I think you already have an escape route on this one. It's already there in the PAP. Yeah, so, but of course, before you do it, you will need to give the justification, and then we give the clearance for use of, say, those research institutions or universities for implementation of certain activities. And of course, the issue of government officials and civil servants also, they are not allowed to participate as consultants unless they are on unpaid leave or they have gone what we call a cool-off period. Like for the bank, for example, when you retire from the bank, you have a cool-off period of 1 year. Then you can come back as a consultant. So unless that is been exhausted, then you may not participate. But for civil servants, also of course, there's the issue of conflict of interest where probably they position themselves to become consultants. I think there's one department here called fish something. Wild fish, yes. Wild fish, I think, I don't know how many experts are there in the world of fish. But you might find that there are those civil servants in the government who are fisheries officers. They may position themselves and they're implementing a project within their countries, and they will want to become, say, consultants. And yet they're the beneficiary. So that raises the issue of what? So I'm talking about wild fish because I know something about the fisheries officer. who is busy, but but it's a full-time civil servant that consulting all over Africa. From my country, I'm not mentioned. So the issue of conflict of interest is also an issue that has to be clearly understood. So that is basically just an overview. The specifics, the details in terms of any documents and all this is really for the procurement officer. But for the team, the high-level team, these are some of the things that we need to, place ourselves for. We should know. Now, I said earlier that by now we should really be having presentation. I don't know whether my colleagues are prepared it, on the procurement plan for this TAAT 2. And during the appraisal, of course, there's something that was prepared, which was presented to the board and approved. But that is what I call a tentative procurement plan. The 3 days, we are here for 3 days, is to really look at all the activities and be able to examine what is in the financing agreement, what is in the project appraisal report, whether all those are procurement activities or some of them are training activities. So it is a civic process in these 2 days. Good enough, all the compact heads will be making presentations about their areas so that we look at exactly what has been summarized and determine whether they are all, whether some of them are procurement or they fall under training, because training also is treated separate. So the 3 days should afford us time to look at all whatever has been summarized. Now, the procurement planning is linked to the project implementation schedule and of course involves planning for procurement of works. The last 3, goods, consulting services, because that is where TAAT and TSF basically will be handling. Goods, not so much. Consulting services, yes. Non-consulting services, maybe a half of the budget. But then you need to do a plan for that. You don't have anything to do with works, with major contracts, the engineering and procurement process, contract, no. But mainly goods, consulting services, and consulting services. So the plan helps in the phasing of the procurement activities. And also determining the critical path, because you might find that there are certain activities that need to be done now, and they feed into the downstream activities. And when you want to implement the downstream activities, then that makes the upstream activities more critical. Like you need to implement this and feed it together, and given the time that we have for implementation. So the procurement plan should be able to tell you it and sequence the activities being procured and implemented. So the procurement plan basically makes you determine what to procure in terms of the like items, large, small, value, with the slices or in packages. Then the value in terms of the budget estimates, which you presented, and then for each procurement package or activity. Then how the procurement activity is going to be, procured. Is it under open competitive bidding, limited competitive bidding, especially for goods and maybe small works, or is it under cost-based selection for consultants, list cost selection, or you need individual consultants, for the services, the consulting services to provide. So that is the how. Then when, basically timing of each step, of each package, or each activity. And who does what? What's the who's responsible for what? To do what? review. Like I said earlier, for you, it's the handling the procurement. For review at the bank level. And even within the U, who prepares the terms of reference, who defines the specifications for the goods that are required. So there has to be responsibility clearly assigned in order to be able to implement the procurement plan as well. Now, there are issues that, of course, emerge in terms of preparation of the plan and its approval. Then there is what we call the initiation of the procurement process and delay in the approval. I joined the supporting TAAT, I think, in 2021, sometime around May, February last year. But a lot of things, of course, were delayed. And by the time we were closing TAAT 1, I think there was an extension. So there are certain things which should have been done early. They are now coming in late. Like I think the issue of selection of consultants for ENGWAU, they are coming at the close. Yet they should have been at the beginning of the implementation. And they are coming at the close. So yeah, so the timing is the issue. Preparing the plan itself. And of course, the preparing of that plan also involves preparing of the work plans. So that means all of you are involved in it. And then initiation of the procurement process. If you are going to get a consultant, when do you start the process? And that initiation starts with preparation of terms of reference. Who is responsible for preparing terms of reference? It's not the procurement officer. If you are under maize, our procurement officers and ours is to push to make sure that the process is being followed. But to prepare the terms of reference for a consultant to do certain activities is your responsibility. So if you are not able to prepare that, then it becomes difficult. The expression of interest has to go out. But of course, the initiation is from your side because you have, when you initiate it, there is also approval process on your end. Maybe your manager has to approve it, then it now is pushed to procurement. But also, procurement has a role in the sense that you've got to remind the compact managers that your activity is due for implementation. You need to initiate the process. And when I used to be on your side, to do a simple email and send it to the component manager and say, you are supposed to initiate this process. We are waiting. Later on, of course, they'll forget. I'm not saying they're going to forget. Then they start saying, procurement has delayed, but you have not started the process because you have got to go through your bosses to have the approval of the budget within your work plans. So that initiation is very, very important. And of course, the constraints that usually happen or experience during the procurement planning and its implementation, there of course will be technical issues or PIU staffing and maybe any other issues. Now, technical capacity maybe from the component system or a component manager has left, somebody new has come in. Now the people who are involved in preparing this project know why they want to do certain activities. You bring in somebody new into that for implementation purposes, and you may not be able to understand exactly what the activity was meant for. So, those are some of the issues. And then, of course, we have what we call the lead time, the approvals from the recipients and also approval from the bank. Because at the bank level, I can tell you that there are three There are also 3 levels. In terms of the review, you can submit your request for a no objection. It will go to the task manager. That's the first point. Depending on the subject matter, the task manager may push it somewhere else or push it to me for my review. I will review. I have my timelines. My service level agreement is 5 working days. I will review. I submit my opinion to the task manager. And you might also have that the task manager has a boss who asks to sign off a letter of no objection. So there are 3 levels: the task manager, there's the procurement, and there is the manager of the task manager. So depending on how involved they are, there might be a delay. That's why you say there's a delay from the bank. So you need to understand that. That one I'm going to be open. We also have delays on our side. I can't say we are 100% straight. But depending on how the sector handles itself and the importance it puts in implementation of the project. So those are what I call administrative approvals, lead time, and of course there's also the delivery time. Now the delivery time, it is you who manages delivery in delivery of the service. You have contracted out a consultant to do a study. The consultant could probably take time. Usually they tell you that they'll be able to do it within 3 months. It could be 6 months. Or depending on the kind of consultant you get, you might start working for the consultant. So the delivery alone might take time. And then once a report has been submitted, there is review of that report and giving comments. That might also take time. So, I mean, those are some of the things that we need to look at. There are, of course, dates that are indicated, procurement activity dates that are indicated in the procurement plan, but all of us have to, be conscious of those dates and ensure that we're able to deliver. That is why we talked about the 4 E's. The efficiency in the procurement system to be able to deliver the required output. So what are the issues that you need to watch out during procurement planning and its implementation? Of course, the critical dates for each procurement activity. And like I said again, you need to remind the users, the component managers on actions to be taken. Initiation of the procurement process, preparation of statements of requirements and terms of reference. And then you need to look at the time slippages based on what you have planned. That's why you have about 2 rows. There is the plan, the revision, and then of course the action. Yeah, so you need to look at the time slippages and be able to revise the procurement plan. And of course, you can consult the bank so that we review it together and review your idea. Now, the procurement plan, like I said, has to be prepared. And there are 2 formats. There's what we call a simplified or a short format, which is used for publication on the bank website. And this is something that you need to do after this discussion, the 3 days here. You need to prepare that short, simplified procurement plan and we publish it on the bank website. Then there's and that is the use that link. It's on the bank link. That link you get it. Then there is the detailed procurement plan for, of course, implementation of the activities where we start from the basic data up to contract and the date. The long one. The long one is not for managers, it's for you. For the managers, they need the simplified one. So again, there's a link going to that link. I'll share this presentation with you, but also when you go to the link, it's there. Then there is the guidance then on how to prepare the procurement or on procurement planning in general. So again, that is for you to look at, and everybody else who is interested in this should look at that. These are the basic things you know. For goods works, the methods, open competitive bidding, limited competitive bidding. Limited competitive bidding is basically shopping. The word looks, but it is shopping. In short, or request for quotations is what we call it. And I think this is what has been prescribed for all your goods.
Yes.
Shopping.
Yes.
And for consulting services, it's list cost, quality and quality selection, list cost, and individual consultant selection method. Again, all these methods are clearly detailed out in the procurement operational manual. So you as the compact managers for your activity, you need to look at that operational manual and see how do you select an individual consultant, how do you select a firm, look at it, and be able to challenge the procurement officers.
Yes.
In case they're prescribing a different method. But also, it's also indicated in the financing agreement, the methods to be used. Again, throughout in these 3 days, we shall define those activities properly, and you know what is training, what is consultation for consulting services.